The budget for these famous scenes probably made the studio pockets explode. Welcome to Patrol Clip, and today we'll be counting down the top 10 most expensive scenes ever filmed. From epic dramas to action-packed sequences, we have it all. Before we start, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss anything from us in the future, including videos just like this one. Number 10. Saving Private Ryan. Doomsday. The famous Doomsday sequence that occurs at the beginning of the film is a large-scale recreation of a moment from history. Not only does it catch the realism and the feel of the moment, but it's shocking and impactful. It isn't just about relishing in the spectacle of war, it's about cowering in fear from the power of it. The scene also works as an introduction to the men who bravely fought on the beach at Normandy, giving us a glimpse of what the soldiers had to endure and how the characters of the film are reflective of that experience. This scene alone cost $12 million because of the logistical difficulties and the realistic scope needed to complete the sequence. Number 9. Speed 2. The Cruise Ship Crash. This pièce de résistance of Jean de Bond's sequel to the 1994 classic is a scene of absolute chaos as the ship collides destructively and into an idyllic, tranquil town on the island of St. Martin. De Bont wrote the screenplay around the sequence, based upon a recurring nightmare. Its conception rivaled Matrix Reloaded for practical effects. De Bont wanted the scene to be real for the actors, so production designer Joseph Nemec III oversaw the construction of a 300-ton replica of the ship, maneuvered via a 1,000-foot track stretching 60 feet deep into the ocean. Back in 1997, computer effects were in their infancy and extremely costly. Nemec told the New York Times that if they had shot it all on CGI, it would have cost them $500 million. But instead, the production team built a replica of 2/3 of the cruise ship, while the rest was created digitally by George Lucas's Industrial Light and Magic. That didn't prevent the final scene from becoming one of Hollywood's most exorbitant, though. The 5-minute scene cost $25 million, or about $83,000 per second, almost matching the entire $30 million budget of its predecessor. They definitely had cruise control on the budget. Number 8. The Matrix Reloaded. The Highway Chase. The second Matrix film is one of those that'll definitely appear on this list more than once, which, if nothing else, is impressive. Impressive because the studio went along with not one, but 2 pricey sequences in the same film. And impressive because it shows how far the Wachowskis were willing to go to try and outdo the original film. That includes building a section of highway from scratch for the sole purpose of filming this sequence. Construction cost $2.5 million alone. And factor in all the cost of the cars they destroyed, the special effects, semi-truck, rigging, pyrotechnics, and of course all the training for the cast and crew, this sequence could easily be worth $10 million. What results is one of the best car chase sequences ever made. Number 7. The original Matrix opening scene. Sticking within the Matrix franchise, when the Wachowskis first pitched The Matrix to Warner Brothers, the studio was understandably hesitant. This was an action film unlike anything that had been seen before. Warner Brothers was at least a little bit intrigued, and so they agreed to give the Wachowskis $10 million to make their film. The Wachowskis knew that this would not be nearly enough, but they took what they had and ran with it. But more importantly, it actually worked. When they screened the film clip for the studio, jaws hit the floor, and the Wachowskis got more money to actually finish the film how they wanted. This $10 million, or $15 million in today's money, went towards buying equipment, training the cast, and of course developing the bullet time camera rig. All of these things would be used for the duration of the film's entire production, and so the cost is a bit inflated when you take into consideration the entire film's budget. But that don't change the fact that $10 or $15 million was required to make this one scene exist in the first place. Number 6. Pearl Harbor, the bombing sequence. In 2001, director Michael Bay, which at the time was best known for Armageddon, took his penchant for big explosions and dazzling effects shots and applied them to a story set against the backdrop of actual historical events. The result? Pearl Harbor, an epic action movie that takes place primarily during the events leading up to the Japanese military bombing in the titular U.S. base in Hawaii in 1941. Michael Bay went all out to realistically and graphically depict the bombing of Pearl Harbor, one of the most famous and destructive acts in American history. And none of this was computer-generated mayhem and bloodshed. Michael Bay employed practical effects, and a lot of them. The crew employed the use of 700 sticks of dynamite and 4,000 gallons of gasoline to properly blow up 6 inactive ships from the Navy. It took around a month to set everything up, and the director certainly didn't want to miss anything, so he set up 12 cameras to film it all. The whole movie altogether cost about $140 million to make, but this one scene in Pearl Harbor ate up approximately $5.5 million of it. Is your mind blown? Don't go anywhere because you're about to witness something else blow up. Executives' wallets. Number 5, 007, Spectre. When you think of James Bond, what's the first thing that comes to mind besides cat-stroking evil geniuses, cool gadgets, and Bond girls? The answer is more than likely luxurious cars. After all, what would 007 be without an Aston Martin DB5 for company? And in the latest installment of the Bond franchise, Spectre, its production set a new record. 24 million pounds, or about $32 million, of the budget was spent destroying cars. The biggest expenditure came from totaling 7 of the 10 aforementioned DB10s, a fact that will no doubt cause car enthusiasts to shed a tear. Number 4, Swordfish, the police chase. In Swordfish, a group of terrorists escape a police chase thanks to a helicopter picking up the bus they're driving. While some CGI is utilized for the sequence, the filmmakers wanted the sequence to be as realistic as possible, and so much of the sequence is completed with stunt work. For interior scenes, the bus was hoisted up on a crane and moved around in front of a green screen. For exterior flying scenes, the bus was actually airlifted by a helicopter through the city. It was a super dangerous stunt because the bus was more than 80% of the capacity of the helicopter, and any wind could make it uncontrollable. That's some serious financial and industrial risks. Number 3, Ben-Hur, the chariot chase. One of the most iconic scenes in film is also one of the most expensive ever made. This is a spellbinding and action-packed scene made even more impressive by the fact that it was made in 1959. The $34 million chariot chase in Ben-Hur is a moment in film history that was way ahead of its time. It's a moment in film that sticks with you thanks to the stakes and the scale. For this reason, it probably had significant impact on the film's Best Picture win at the Oscars. This sequence is also one which could not be made today, for better or for worse, because no studio would allow the use of horses in the same manner as the original scene. The Ben-Hur remake utilized CGI and modern effects in order to make this scene again, but even with all the modern technological advancements available to the filmmakers, it couldn't possibly hold a candle to the original masterpiece. Number 2, Matrix Reloaded, The Smith Battle. Our final scene from the Matrix franchise on this list is the modern action movie scene where the filmmakers literally push the envelope. The sequence features the protagonist Neo fighting a seemingly endless mob of Agent Smith duplicates. To pull off the look of an entire army composed of the same person, CGI was necessary. The fight sequence of Neo versus Smith and his clones, aka the Burly Brawl, took 27 days to shoot. The special effects cost $100 million. Well, Matrix, we bid you farewell. You've had a good run, but our number 1 pick definitely deserves the spotlight. Number 1, War and Peace, Part 3. The most expensive action scene in movie history so far is from a movie most people probably haven't seen or even heard of in the first place. During the beginning of the Cold War, the Soviet Union was looking for opportunities to increase the country's prestige. As part of this effort, the Ministry of Culture approved and helped to fund a 4-part adaptation of Tolstoy's seminal novel, War and Peace. The third part of the film was released in 1967 and covered Napoleon's invasion of Russia. In this segment, there is a significant portion of the story which takes place during the Battle of Borodino. The sequence depicting this battle consumes more than an hour of runtime on its own. In 1979, the Guinness Book of World Records named War and Peace the most expensive movie ever made with a budget of $96 million in 1979 dollars. Now, if you convert $96 million to today's dollars, that yields about $336 million. There were 4 parts to the film which shared this budget, but the Battle of Borodino was the most expensive and cost-intensive part of the entire production. This observation has led to many contemporary sources claiming the scene could have costed more than $100 million on its own. It's pretty easy to see why. Well, folks, that is all for now. Those are some of the most expensive scenes ever filmed. If you'd like us to cover more expensive scenes, or other topics, make sure you leave a comment down below. And as always, be sure to like and subscribe to Patrol Clip for more videos like this one. And until next time.